I've always wanted to be a journalist. I think it was something I thought was interesting as a kid. I was like being a consumer of the news. It was something I did every day. It was pick up the newspaper, look at the front page, see what was in the editorial cartoons, try to get my parents to explain it to me in age-appropriate terms, and then from that I decided I wanted to be a reporter, because being a reporter, you can be there. You don't have to wait for it to come out in the newspaper or even on the website now later. You're the one that's there and writing it. The press club has been wonderful. I first joined as a student in 1997, and I've been a full adult member since 1999. And in that time, it's helped me get jobs. And even if it wasn't a direct hire, it's always been someone's been able to help me get to the right person when I'm applying for a job, and you're just getting the foot in the door makes a big difference. So the press club has been very supportive and helpful in that way. And with our professional training, it's really been helpful to get new skills or perfect ones that you already have. A couple things. For Women's History Month, we will be doing a wonderful reception with a panel moderated by Eleanor Clift that will talk about women in journalism and be a celebratory event, helping kick off Women's History Month. And then the next day on March 1st, we'll be having a panel of former women presidents who will be coming here to the club and talking about the place of women in the National Press Club specifically, not so much in journalism broadly, but here at the Press Club, where women have come a long way in the past 30 to 40 years. In addition to those official events, we'll be working hard this year to make sure that women are well represented in the luncheon speakers lineup and on down through our programming. We're working on an event for November, so it's a long way out right now, but we're talking about the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination. So we had a lineup of people that were there, and I looked at it and it was all men. And I said, these people are great, I hope we can get them all, but there also were women there. Even if women weren't as prominent among journalists at that time as they are now, there were women who were there, and there were women journalists back in the 60s. So the person organizing that event has gone and found a woman. And that's the kind of thing, I just want to make sure that we are always hearing the voices of women, and that we're not overpopulated by the same voices we always hear. I think they're huge. A lot of women back in the 1960s and 70s fought very hard to make sure that women today can have whatever jobs they want in journalism. And I've never felt that there was anything I couldn't do in journalism as a woman. I just took it for granted that I could do whatever I wanted to. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I realized that people before me couldn't take that for granted, and that they had to fight very hard, including using the courts, to make sure that any job was open to any person. And I think that it's important to have a diversity of voices in terms of journalists on the air and print, whatever, because people do bring their own experiences and their own backgrounds to what they're reporting. So it's important that the journalists who are reporting the news be diverse in the same way that the people upon who people we're writing about are diverse as well. There's a lot of women, especially some of those who fought the lawsuits that I mentioned back in the 60s and 70s, who I would consider people who have inspired me to stand up for what is right. Among those people would be Betsy Wade of the New York Times, Peggy Simpson, who was with AP and who is a former Washington Press Club president and still active here today at the National Press Club. They're people that fought hard through the court system to make things equal for women. And going farther back, Nellie Bly, was a very courageous female journalist back in an era where it was kind of taken for granted that women couldn't do everything that men could do. And she did really important reporting, including on the mental health system, which is something that today, just as then, could always use more sunlight shed on it. And then, of course, women like Helen Thomas and Sarah McClendon, women that were among the first to cover the White House. We have a room here at the National Press Club named for Sarah McClendon, and Helen Thomas, at age 93, is still a member now and still comes here to the club. So they're women who have inspired me and who, through the Press Club, I've had an opportunity to meet and get to know a little bit as well. I can't think of any personal challenges that I face as a woman. I think the biggest one would be, in general, there's fewer women role models at the top. You know, we have the first New York Times female editor-in-chief now with Jill Abramson, and that's great. And there are certainly women who are in high up places in journalism, but there are not as many as there are men. So I would say that that's the greatest challenge right now. It's not so much, am I allowed to do this job or not? Yeah, you are. But there's not as many women at the top who we can see as, oh gee, maybe I'd like to be there someday. I was looking at the pictures we have out on the wall of all the former presidents, and I'm happy to report that 6 of the past 11 have been women. So in the past decade plus 1 year, more than half of the presidents have been women. And that being said, there have only been 11 women presidents of the Press Club in its 106-year history. So while we've been doing really well in recent years, obviously things weren't that way in the past. So we can't go back and change the past, but we can certainly celebrate what we have now and learn from the past and make sure that we don't slip in terms of leadership in the future. So I think that one of the important things is finding women leaders in the Press Club to cultivate for being committee chairs, for being leaders in any what way at the club, for being on the Press Club's board. And that's something that I want to do this year, is make sure that I'm working hard to identify the next leaders, both men and especially women.